Always delighted to welcome those of you who listen in or watch on YouTube. Thank you for joining us, and thank you again for everybody who's here. Anybody around campus who's watching, you're missing out. Come on. Servanthood is the theme for today. Somebody that I love very much suggested I title the message for the day, The Joy of S.E. blank. The Joy of Serving. Servanthood, I remember being a boy, and I don't know why these images come back to me so much, but I remember my dad had the capacity to take us as a family to different places. We traveled around the world, and this was a world, I'm old enough that this was a world where, in the world that we inhabit, there was a servant, non-servant distinction, especially in certain places. Like my dad would take us to clubs where there were people that wore white gloves and brought stuff to the table, and there was this huge, you could say like a class distinction. You knew who were the clients of the club and who were the servants of the club without any question. And I know I acquired from that as a young boy the notion that I didn't want to be a servant. I wanted to be a club member, right? And that to me is regrettable in a certain sense because, ironically, years later, I would decide to become a chaplain and a pastor, right? And interestingly, that's a decision to pursue a servant identity. And in fact, that may not be obvious to all of you, and my ex-wife accused me of going to seminary for the open mic, but there was a time when I had to write, especially I was trying to qualify for a certain credentialing as a chaplain, and I wrote a paper about what I understood chaplaincy to be. And the opening line that I used in that paper, which drew some attention in my board review, was a 3-word sentence: ministry is service. I deeply believe that. I believe that ministry is service, and I stand on good linguistic authority because minister comes from a French and Latin tradition in which the distinction is between minister and master. Minister and magister. So this is that same dynamic of the master and slave, or the master and servant. And to minister is to serve. It's the essence of the language that we use when we call a person a minister, is to say that they are inhabiting a service role. And I think that we live in a time when I had 2 words on my outline. One is besting, like to best somebody, and another is to accumulate, right? And these are things that I feel are celebrated in front of us all the time. Like, I'm going to kick his sheep, or I'm going to acquire. And that is this messaging that I am pretty sure also was in the soup of the world that I grew up in, because I think it's like a very Western mindset in which, by contrast, the decision to dispose one's life towards, let's say, washing feet using the Christian image, or putting yourself in a servant identity seems contrary to what winning is. And why would anybody do that? Why would anybody do that? Why would anybody become a preschool teacher like my amazing wife? Why would anybody become a person who plays music in a club? Marnie and I have both done that a number of times, and it's a weird thing. You're playing and everybody else is busy about that, but it's a servant thing. You are providing a service to play music where somebody else is the feature. And if you ever do that as a musician, what you discover immediately is there's an immense joy in doing it well. Like, if you figure out how to be a good accompanist to somebody else's sort of front mic woo-woo-woo, there's a satisfaction that you get, even though the person in the front of the lead guitar or whatever may be getting all this accolade. And so this is the thing. There's a reason to choose to serve. And there is a harvest to be gained from pursuing a service orientation rather than a best accomplishment acquisition orientation. And wisdom traditions of the world have long known this. So if you look at Judeo-Christian literature, you see the championing of servanthood. And like just at this time of year, one of the stories that comes prominently in Judeo-Christian narrative is the story of Jesus, and it's a answer to a story of a community that's called Israel. And both the Jewish community of the Hebrew Bible, referred to by the Christians as Old Testament, that Jewish community, and then the community that experiences this person, Jesus, as the Messiah, speak about in their poetic language of what is going on in these two stories, about a suffering servant. This idea that there is something that will happen in the lives of these people when a servant leader emerges who will suffer, and that suffering on behalf of the community will be redemptive. So the tragedy and the difficulty of these people's lives will, in some sense, abate or offer, there'll be an antidote to the miseries of the present through a leader who isn't like a champion who bests everybody, but a leader who adopts this different orientation, the orientation of self-emptying, of sacrifice. I was refreshing my notes this morning, and I was trying to think if I could even point to anybody in our common real landscape that embodies servant leadership. And I came on an empty part, sadly. But you know who I thought of? There's an actor. His name is Ryan Eggold. I hope I said his name right. But he plays a character called Max Goodwin in this TV series called New Amsterdam. If you're not a New Amsterdam fan, sorry. But anyway, it's an interesting show. I've been rewatching it when I am trying to be non-productive and kick back with the cat on my lap. And it's because it's a charming show. There's something quite charming about this story. And the central character is this doctor named Max Goodwin, who is sent or arrives at a hospital in New York City. It's meant to, I can't think of the name of the real hospital it's patterned after, but it's a hospital that most of us don't know the actual name of. But anyway, they call it New Amsterdam. That was the name of New York City at one time. And this hospital is a mess until Max shows up. And Max wanders around the hospital in this, he embodies servant leadership. And he has a tagline. So he shows up, and there's a disaster over here in the, ICU or this department, that department, whatever. And his line is, how can I help? How can I help? You wouldn't think there would be amazing power in 4 words like that. But if you watch the show, it'll get you, because it's not the thing you expect the CEO of the hospital to say. You don't expect the CEO. You expect the CEO to come in and exert authority and command and determine, like blah blah blah. And Max is like, how can I help? What can I do? And he means it. He means it. He'll put on a scrub. He'll do whatever, and it is redemptive. I mean, if you start watching the TV show, you get that, like, I don't know how you watch the TV show and not fall in love with the character, and be to some degree inspired by it. I think these are stories that inspire and capture my heart. I pray they would capture and inspire the hearts of others, because it turns out that there's also really good science around this. So, and there's been a pivot in behavioral health, neurobiological understanding that's happening. It's a revolution that's still underway. If any of you have heard of polyvagal theory or whatever, there's this really interesting pivot away from championing cognitive therapy and thinking that the big thing that we need to do to help people who have behavioral health issues or trauma or various sorts of things is more to talk their way through and give them abilities through thought to control the body. Well, this new shift honors the way the body sort of stores and is to some degree primal, and the thought world sort of catches up and runs after and around and beyond. And so in this sense, what the Stephen Porges is the writer who has developed this incredibly complicated, don't read or listen to Stephen Borges unless you want to like really scratch your brain, wicked smart guy. And he talks about how the species has evolved with social instinct, right? This need to care for one another. We have a need to care for one another, or the babies won't survive. And so helping one another will bring us satisfaction at a fundamental level. In other words, you're meant to feel good when if you've ever gotten to the point where you had like an aging parent and everybody's like, oh, I can't believe you have to do that work. But there's a profound thing that can happen when when there's this reversal and you're caring for the basic bodily hygiene of somebody who cared for you when you were an infant. And talk about beauty. I'm sorry, that is beautiful. And this is the thing that I feel like it's a hidden secret because we don't champion it, we don't talk about it. There is an inner satisfaction, a reduction in anxiety, a reduction in an elevation of mood out of depression, and an ability to sort of navigate compulsive disorders through the medicine of service. Like this is to be of aid to one another decreases our angst, our fundamental dysregulation, and it's being shown with all kinds of great research. Now this polyvagal theory, which was esoterically published in the 1990s, and just like people started doing studies to sort of see if it garnered support. Well, now it's like really causing a variety of other methods and approaches to helping people who present with anxiety, depression, compulsivity disorder to think and provide care in different ways. I will say that, and then I will also say, like I said, wisdom traditions, and caring professions have known the power of love forever, right? One of the things that makes caring distinctive historically is that, and I've had other people say, oh, that's the place where everybody's so loving, as if that's like a mistake. And I'm like, yeah, because it's in the care and passion that is brought by people who are not here to best and to accumulate and to acquire. If you line up the cars from the employees, I'm pretty sure, it's like, not a lot of us are driving Maseratis. I mean, I have issues, so I have a nice car, but people are not here making tons of money. That's my point. Is they're not here making tons of money. They're here for this incredible truth that in a service orientation of their lives, they find meaning and value for which the remuneration to keep their families fed is apparently sufficient. And also, patient care, I think, improves in this setting. And this goes back, if you look at Buddhism, for example, as a wisdom tradition, Buddhism, its centerpiece, I've been spending a lot of time in meditation, which I'm so grateful for, and compassion, loving kindness, and forgiveness are centerpieces of the Buddhist practice. I didn't know that when I read Siddhartha Gautama, and I learned this academic thing about Buddhism and desire and all that sort of stuff, but Buddhism is this really loving approach. It's gentle and tender, and I want to make a turn to other traditions. So today, Hanukkah's behind us, but the two things that are ahead in sacred calendars are Thursday at 10:27, I think, in the evening in the Northern Hemisphere, is the winter solstice. This is the instance when they try to measure orbits and rotations and all that sort of stuff, when we'll have the shortest amount of daylight of this year. Everybody should go, yay, right? Because I'm affected by shortened daylight. I don't know if you sense that you are, but my guess is that you are. Going back to the polyvagal theory, we may be more affected by our bodies than we realize. And when I was back in my addiction, I thought this thing ruled everything, and I couldn't tell you a feeling if it was in my body. So solstice comes on Thursday, and then Sunday we were talking the announcements is Christmas Eve. And Christmas Eve in the Christian traditions happens to also to be the fourth Sunday of Advent, which is a countdown towards Christmas. And I grew up in a Catholic family and then became a Protestant minister. And in a lot of those churches where there's a level of ritual observance that's sufficient, there's a thing called an Advent wreath. I don't know if you've ever seen one or know what it is. It's a 4-candle or 5-candle thing. And a lot of these things are lovely and the traditions are weird, but the Advent wreath has these 4 candles, and if there is a center candle, it's the candle for Christmas Eve. But the 4 candles typically are, 3 of them are blue or purple, and 1 of them is pink. And if you look, you're like, which one of these things is not like the other? Like, I like magazine in my childhood. So, today's the Pink Candle Sunday. And the reason why this particular Sunday is Gaudete Sunday, that's Latin for rejoicing. The Sunday in which the theme is, so the themes for the 4 Sundays of Advent are hope, peace, joy, love, I think is the sequence. Anyway, the 3rd Sunday is definitely the Joy Sunday. Woo-hoo. And I'm hoping you can start to feel it. It is definitely in the heart of this message. And you have to know how this developed. The season of Advent was way before they started decorating on the day after Halloween in Target. So in antiquity of these traditions, and sidebar, Yule, Christmas, and Santa Claus are this weird amalgamation of 3 different traditions. Christians who are like, these are all our things, are actually incorrect. Yule comes from Germanic pagan traditions, so Yuletide carols are a nod to traditions that are non-traditional. But also the Saint Nicholas of history appears to be an Orthodox figure who comes in here also. So, and I just think, like, I don't know, if you're the person at the chapel service, you just learn to appreciate all this instead of like fighting about it. It's kind of fun and cool and it's messy. And so all this stuff collides. So Yuletide, Saint Nick, and the birth of Jesus land this week. Wow. And when communities in like medieval years were getting ready for the celebration of this Christmas festival, there was a season of penitence, of strict fasting, and of getting ready for the Christmas, where you would like feast, right? So it was like without, in order to have and celebrate. I don't know if any of us actually fast in Advent, but I have news for you. If you're here and you're a patient, you have a wristband, a really powerful way of thinking about recovery is as a fast. In which case, I'm on a 34-year alcohol fast. And I really think it's a powerful, and I don't think it's an incorrect framing of the notion of what this is, because fasting in essence is to give up one thing for a larger good outside. And so this is what recovery is to abstain from something that you're likely to crave, you're likely to be tempted with, you're likely to have people offer you or whatever and say, no, I'm not doing that today. And the harvest is this incredible joy I'm talking about. So when you had 2 weeks of like, whatever it was, let's say nothing but, bread and water or whatever, or I don't know if it was that extreme, it wasn't a starvation fast, but it was a restricted diet. There was the 3rd Candle Sunday, which was like a mini feast. You had a chance to have everybody had a party, and the worship services were celebratory, and there were special cakes and things that were made for Gaudete Sunday and all this sort of stuff. And then the next Sunday was like back to chill until Jesus actually arrives. So I think that's all the things I really wanted to put on the table in front of us before I ask you to hear an invitation. In the season in which the commercialization of our society has hidden this powerful message that AA knows about so well. In Alcoholics Anonymous, if you read A Vision for You, which is the culminating chapter of the exposition of the method, at the very end of the last chapter of the exposition, it's on page 164 for those of you who are learning about the big book. It says we cannot keep what we have unless we give it away. It says in the 12th step, which is the culmination of this 12-step thing, that having had a spiritual awakening is the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And people in the communities interpret that as a mandate to serve, right? That in other words, if you're a good sponsor in a 12-step program, you're teaching your sponsee that the most powerful thing they can do is help another sufferer. And that it's not really necessary to rescue the sufferer, it's to keep your own sanity and sobriety intact. So this is this paradox of service being a powerful antidote to misery. And it's the secret sauce of the 12-step miracle. I really do believe it's like, people wonder, why do those things work? Because doing that brings joy. It brings you joy that exceeds whatever pleasure you think you're getting from a dopamine rush from a drug. So, because that's an artificial stimulation of the same biochemistry, but it's not authentic pleasure. Authentic pleasure has to have a story behind it that makes sense so that you can go back to it. And the story of going down to K&A to get dope is not a story that makes sense with the pleasure that you experience with the drug. So, here's the one-liner: be the gift. This Christmas. In that is a notion that will change you and change our world. It will empower recovery. Serve and get high from serving because you can, and there's no reason not to. And I can hear a song that will change the world. Is it Stevie Wonder? Like it will change your world. Orient your life not towards yourself, but towards another. And give it a try. Give it a try just for a day. And I promise you it will activate this biochemistry of satisfaction. And then do it tomorrow. And then do it tomorrow. And then do it tomorrow. This is our call today on Gaudete Sundays, to find the joy in loving one another. And we will kick addiction's ass. Thank you. God bless you.